Hello, friends. We are here today with a very special guest, and I am very excited about this talk because right now there is nothing more important than our wellness and our well-being. And I'm excited to have Asha Pai Bohemian. I'm going to Bohem. Sorry, I don't know why I just said that wrong. We just stopped. But Asha is coming to us today to talk about holistic wellness practice and what can we be doing during these times and how we can intertwine some of the different wellness techniques that we use with both the East and the West, which I love because it's this integration of the two. So just a quick introduction to Asha. She has a holistic wellness practice in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she lives with her husband and her son, two sons. She is an entrepreneur, author, and speaker, and she believes that your personal journey can bring you health, hope, and harmony in everyday life with the right tools and guidance. And I love this. So she also is known as the Rebel Pharmacist. So tell us a little bit about why you are known as the Rebel Pharmacist, Asha.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Tammy. I'm so excited to be here. So the Rebel Pharmacist actually came in. So I am a pharmacist, and I spent 20 plus years in the retail pharmacy world. But as I was going along, I am a very firm believer of being on the least amount of medications possible. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but as I was going through, I always felt like I was feeding people's illnesses versus helping them get and stay well. And so when I would be talking to some patients or clients at the pharmacy, it just kind of came about that we would always talk about other ways to get healthy or stay healthy. And so it was actually it came out one day when I was talking to some of those clients that I was like, I just feel like, I've never been a rebel in my life. I was always the kid that, my family that always did the right thing, or I always chose the right ways or whatever. And so I told one of my clients or patients, I said, I just feel like such a rebel, like I'm not doing the right thing. And so that dubbed me as the Rebel Pharmacist from that point forward. And ever since then, since in my career, I've just really kind of been taking this different route in the world of pharmacy and healthcare in general, as far as just being more holistic in nature. And that's kind of where the Rebel Pharmacist part came in.
That's awesome. And I know we talked before about how, you were in the pharmacist role and realized, like you said, that you didn't feel like it was the right thing. You felt like you were being a rebel. So tell us a little bit more about what it was that really hit you when you were a pharmacist and what made you make that change.
Yeah. So I'm of Eastern Indian descent. So my parents are from India, have been, but I was born and raised in America. So growing up, I was really engulfed in that Eastern Indian tradition, practices, Ayurveda. My parents did a really great job of kind of intertwining that with what we knew. And then I grew up and went to college and decided that I was in love with Western science. So I got into pharmacy. And so when I got into the pharmacy world, I started really getting back to my roots of the Eastern practices and traditions and how they really helped people get and stay well. I still used those types of practices for myself and my family. And so it was kind of this blend of East meets West approach to life and healthcare. And it wasn't really fully, so I knew this when I was working with my patients that I wanted to do that, but it really wasn't until I myself had health issues after I had my second child that I started to really see what our healthcare system in America is about. And that's where I was like, okay, I've got to do something different, because the stress of what I was doing and the Band-Aid approach to our healthcare system and just wanting to apply medication after medication after medication, it wasn't where I wanted to be. And I knew that I couldn't continue to do that for other people, just based off of what I call the golden handcuffs of pharmacy. So that's how it all came about with the East meets West approach to healthcare for me.
That's awesome. And, you know, I know when we first talked, I told you, you're like not the only pharmacist I know that has gone through this transition where you're in this role and you're feeding people, you know, different drugs and things that, you know, some of them are obviously beneficial to help people through things, but a lot of times we're just treating the symptoms and not necessarily the problem. And being able to get to the root of that is so important. And being able to see that firsthand had to be such an important part in why you're doing what you're doing now. So I know there are so many factors of your business. So tell me what they are and what's your number one passion at this moment.
Yes, I have so many passions. It's ridiculous. But they all align. So this is a good part. Yes, I firsthand got to witness how all of this went. And you're right. A lot of pharmacists are starting to head down this same path, this rebellious path, if you will. And so I do a lot of medication management in my practice, where we are in a society where a lot of people take a lot of things, be it prescriptions, supplements, over the counters, whatever it is. And a lot of times the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And so when you go from doctor to doctor, or you go from pharmacy to pharmacy, there's not one person that actually knows all the pieces to your puzzle when it comes to meds. So you want to make sure that you're getting the right information for you when it comes to your medication management. So I do work with patients in that. I'm also a certified diabetes educator. So I tend to work with pre and type 2 diabetes patients, work with a lot of cardiovascular patients as well. And we look at your life, we look at everything from a 360-degree view. So it's not just about taking medications. And I agree with what you said. My philosophy is there is a necessity for medications. So that's why I always say the least amount of medications possible. So it's not that I'm going to take you off all your meds. And that's not the goal here. But it's what other things can we do to help aid your health and wellness and well-being, right? And so another piece is I have a gut health program. So it's a very targeted, intense 6-week gut health program that because 80% of our immunity lies in our gut. And a lot of us have done a lot of damage to our gut over the years, different foods, different things that we've done, stressors, all of those things, right? So it's important to kind of take care of that hub and get started there usually. And then my number one, I saved this for last because I really want to get into this. My number one passion has become stress management. The reason for that is when I looked back at my own health concerns and health issues that sprung up, it really ties back into years and years ago. Before I even knew that I really had any health issues, I saw these things springing up and never really tied it to anything. So I just let it go. Mm-hmm. And it was all dealing with stress. I never dealt with stress. I never did a great job of self-care because I'm such a nurturer and I always want to take care of everybody else, right? Who a lot of us are like that, right? Especially I'm going to say women, moms, like we just always have that that force towards helping our kids, helping our parents, helping our spouses, like whatever it is, and just forgetting about yourself. And so that's where I ended up getting a lot of internal health issues based off of not taking care of that stress and managing it properly.
Yeah, and I think so many people are going to relate to that because I think that just happens, you know, unfortunately, naturally for so many women where they put their efforts and their, you know, their nurturing into someone else and they tend to forget about themselves and don't release a lot of the stuff. And so when we don't let go of it, it just builds up. And I'm a huge believer, like our body is just giving us signs of what's going on. And, you know, every part of our body has a different area that's saying, you know, this is what's happening, or you're not dealing with this, you're not dealing with stress, you're not dealing with frustration, anger, all these different things. And so when we have these pains and aches and, you know, chronic pains, that they're just signs telling us we haven't dealt with something or we haven't done something. So those of you listening, how many of you can relate to that? I mean, tell us in the comments because we want to hear, like, yes, I've been there as well myself. And, you know, being a working mom, you know, I was working in corporate when I first had my kids, and, you know, worked a lot of hours and a lot of stress. And so that builds up too. And you find you don't have time. Like you go from work to home and, it's like, where do you find time for yourself? Right?
Absolutely. No, I was absolutely there. And I'll say, during this pandemic, I think a lot of people are now starting to feel like they are important enough now to, and it's the realizations are coming, right? That, oh, I do need to take care of my health because there's a pandemic based off of your health, right? Health and wellness.
Mhm.
And so now's a really great time to really start thinking about how to change the trajectory of where your life is going when it comes to your health and wellness. And that includes everything, every aspect of you, your finances, your career, your relationships, of course, the nutrition, the exercise, like all of those things. It's just a whole holistic view, right? It's a whole person view of what you're doing. And I know for me, even at the beginning of this pandemic, I was getting clients, like I said, people are really starting to understand I need to start taking care of my own health to be able to
Mhm.
take care of everybody else, right? And my goal is to help people not get into the mess that I was in 6 years ago after I had my second son, where you're almost rock bottom when it comes to your health. And that's where I was at. And I don't want people to experience that same thing. And that can happen when you let your stress go and you get into a chronic stress, chronic inflammation state. But the one thing that I kept hearing from all of my clients, and I still continue to hear, is, well, of course I'm stressed, but that's normal. I almost want to laugh every time I hear that because it has become the norm.
Right.
And to me, that's just not acceptable, right? Like we should not have stress be our norm. It was the norm in the caveman days when they were being chased by saber-toothed tigers, right? Like that's where all of that came from. But it was not a chronic thing. It was when you got chased, your body dealt with it and it was fine. And then it would be okay. And so for us, we've just got this underlying level of stress, of cortisol release, of all these hormones, negative hormones that are being released over a period of time and causing problems to our bodies. So we just need to flip that switch to make
Mhm.
sure that it's not the normal anymore.
Yeah. So, you make some great points. And I think right now, especially stress levels are higher, everything that we're going through with COVID and the pandemic and schools, we were just talking about that before we got on, like, schools going to virtual learning again, or, that's just causing a lot of stress for people with everything happening. You've got to live a different lifestyle than what you're used to. And in some ways, I think it's good for us all to take that step back and be able to say, okay, where can I make some adjustments? Where can I look at things differently? But in other ways, I know there are people who are just so afraid of even leaving their homes and doing everything. So, do you have a couple tips for us, for the listeners, that they can do during this time to really help them with that stress level?
Absolutely. So earlier this year, I actually added a new piece to my practice because apparently I like to do those kinds of things. I like to be a glutton for punishment. Um, but I love this new piece I've added. I've aligned myself with a brand new company called Solvasa. It's an East meets West approach to stress management. Essentially, we help you learn how to manage your stress better through the mind, body, and skin connection. It's what I've been doing for years, and it's what but I think they have a great mission. It's integrative beauty is what it's called. And through that, I have learned even more about practices that I've been doing all along. So I love to go back to what you said, Tammy, about the time. Nobody feels like they have time to do this. I mean, that's probably everyone's number one objection to self-care is I just don't have time. So there is a practice called habit stacking. And this is what I've sort of been doing this, but ever since I started with Silvassa earlier this year, they've given these micro practices to do throughout the day in 2 to 5 minute pockets of time. And you can be doing these while you're doing something else for yourself. So it's all around self-care. You're not going to be at the computer typing out an email and doing these things, but it's maybe when you are doing a skincare routine, or maybe you're having your cup of tea. I like my turmeric elixir, which is what I'm drinking right now, and you can do these breathing and mindful practices. So that's something that I want to share with people, is to start habit stacking your self-care. So it's not that you have to spend 15 minutes doing this, 20 minutes doing this, it's not that, because none of us have an hour and a half to do all those things, right? So the habit stacking is one thing. The second thing is the mindfulness piece. I have been, my favorite author in the mindfulness realm is John Kabat-Zinn. He's written a million books on mindfulness, but my favorite is Wherever You Go, There You Are. And the basis behind it is that you just need to be mindful and present in every moment that you are having. Mm-hmm. So if you are working on business, then you need to sit and work on business. That is all you're going to do. You've got to figure out a way, and it doesn't have to be an hour's worth of time.
Yeah.
Right. So it's being very intentional with your moments. If it's 15 minutes and that's all you can snag away from virtually teaching your kids or whatever it is that you have to do, then in that 15 minutes, say, this is what I'm going to do. Or if you are with your kids, then you just say, you put your phone away and this is what you're going to do. And I promise you that helps your cortisol levels stay where they need to stay. And cortisol is the number one inflammation causing hormone in response to stress that we get. Mm-hmm. And so those are just a couple practices right there. There's a million different things. I can talk about supplements. I can talk about, all the things that we can be doing to kind of help ourselves. But like I said, I drink my turmeric elixir, and I have that once or twice a day. And I love curcumin so much because it's a potent anti-inflammatory to kind of help keep those stress levels down as well. And then my elixir actually has ashwagandha root in it, which is called an adaptogen, and that just helps our body adapt and boost resilience to stress. So some great supplements out there that can kind of help just take the edge off a little bit from your day and help your body relieve and calm itself in a more holistic way. And again, those are like my Eastern sides coming out, using some of those ingredients that can help you boost your resilience to stress.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. And I know people are going to have questions, and, you've talked about some other ways, and you have so many more, because it really is dependent on what's going on with the person. And there's so much that, that is individualized for people as well. And so how can they get in touch with you? You want to just put your links in the comments below?
Yes, I'll put all the links in the comments. And I always offer, when I do these kinds of things, a free consult with me. Because it is so individualized. There really is no cookie cutter way for me. And yes, you need to manage stress, or yes, you have to look at your meds or whatever it is, but there's no cookie cutter way to doing this. So I love to talk to people to see what it is their needs are, and we can go from there. So yes, I will pop it in the comments when we are done.
Awesome. Yes. I know you talked about the habit stacking, and it's something that I talk about in the book I have coming out too, that there's different ways to remind yourself and get little prompts throughout the day, just setting things on your phone and doing different things so that you're constantly reminded, okay, I need to take a 5-minute break, or I need to, use this to shift my mindset or do different things. So I love that. And I see your books in the background there.
Yes. Yeah. So this is my book. It's called To Medicate or Not. That is the question: how to improve your blood test results on the least amount of medications possible. So it's on Amazon if anybody's interested in checking that out. And I'm actually in the process of writing another book right now about if you're a pharmacist out there and you're interested in kind of making that shift, how you're able to do that more effectively and get out of your own way, because it is a huge mindset shift for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that. Thank you for sharing and being with us today. And if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out to Dr. Asha, be sure to message her. She will share her information in the comments. and you can go get your free consult with her because you will be surprised at how many things you can change in your life. And I love this concept of the East meets West and being able to combine and see where you can improve things over time. So thank you, Asha. It was so great to
Yes,
see
thank
you.
you for having me, Tammy. I really enjoyed this talk.